This is Outnumbered. I'm Andrea Tantaros, and here with us today, Sandra Smith, Democratic strategist and Fox News contributor Julie Roginsky, National Review columnist and Fox News contributor Katherine Timpf, and today's hashtag One Lucky Guy from Washington's WMAL on the radio, former intelligence and Pentagon correspondent Chris Plante is back. And Mr. Plante, you are outnumbered.
I am, yes I am, but it's all right. I feel like I'm lacking in color.
Oh, you're better not Harris. Harris is off today, and she did not hear that.
I need a better color.
Doing all right.
I'm going to keep up.
All right, that's a deal. Next time you're here, I don't know. You're going to get one. I don't know if you want to show up in a hot pink suit,
like a Batman outfitter.
All right, frightening new developments in the San Bernardino terror attack. As we learn, a bigger plot may have been in the works. The LA Times is reporting that investigators believe that Syed Farouk and Tafshin Malik were planning another assault, possibly at a nearby school or college. This, as an FBI dive team is searching for evidence that the couple may have dumped in a lake just a few miles away from the building where they killed 14 people last week. In the meantime, brand new polling shows that Americans are more afraid of another terrorist attack now more than any other time since the weeks after 9/11. A New York Times CBS News poll finds that 19% of those surveyed say that terrorism is the nation's most pressing issue. Now, that's compared to just 4% 1 month ago. Huge jump. And 44% of Americans believe that an attack is very likely to happen in the U.S. in the next few months. Now, that's the most since October of 2001. In the meantime, an intelligence report obtained by ABC News warns that ISIS may have the ability to print its own passports in order to get into the United States. It says that followers may have already infiltrated our borders with the fake documents. Also, the White House says that the visa program that helped one of the San Bernardino shooters get into this country won't be suspended while it's under review.
There are questions that are being asked about whether or not additional steps or screening measures could have been implemented or should have been implemented. And if so, would they have made a difference? So these are all questions that, 8 days after this terrible terrorist attack, that are still under careful consideration. What I'm saying is that there is more information that needs to be collected in the context of the investigation to make sure we sort of have a complete picture of what exactly happened.
But Ambassador John Bolton is slamming the system. Watch.
Not really recognize that the people who are interviewing these visa applicants out in our embassies and consulates around the world tend to be very junior Foreign Service officers who don't want to be doing that job because, rightly or wrongly, I think wrongly, consular affairs is not viewed as a priority at the State Department. It's not the road to achievement. And they're overwhelmed with lines of people coming in. They don't have the capability to identify them.
Sandra, this is pretty troubling that the United States government missed all of these signs. You heard Williams reporting, and now we have this visa program clearly with holes in it, and they won't even suspend it to take the time to make sure no one else slips through the cracks.
And I don't know what more we need to know that this visa system failed us. It failed those people killed in San Bernardino. Why not just put a halt on the program at the very least? I mean, the questions that they're actually asking, aside from the fact that they're these junior officers that the ambassador is referencing, that they're overwhelmed with the process, how could it possibly be efficient? It wasn't. It failed these people. Put a stop to it right now, re-look at it, and look at how you can make it more efficient.
Not even that, Chris. I mean, the administration is going full blast and continuing to press that we need to bring Syrian refugees over. So if our visa program isn't working and the screening process isn't working for that, because you can lie and do all sorts of things, why would we take on thousands of Syrian refugees when we can't vet them?
The cluelessness is astonishing. It's becoming inexplicable, even for these guys, and they've been in denial for years. But at this point, there's about to be an uprising in the streets, and the president's spokesman, the clueless Josh Earnest, continues to peddle this. They're giving us the slow roll, all right? What are we on, a blue ribbon commission, and 6 months from now they'll get back to us about some recommendations that they might implement? I was having breakfast this morning on this block at a diner, Little Creek Diner, and I was sitting next to, Fox News was on, not surprisingly, a young woman, 24 years old, sitting next to me, by herself, just turned to me and said, a story about Syria, why are we still letting these people in the country? A 24-year-old, I said, you better be careful. You're starting to sound like Donald Trump. And she laughed and then expressed something negative about Donald Trump. She's not a Donald Trump person, but she was saying what Donald Trump was saying about keeping people from this war zone where there are beheadings and crucifixions and the jihad is going on out of the United States. Everybody gets it but them.
Katherine, I think that, or should I say Kat? We're closer than that. I can call you Kat. That point, that anecdote that Chris just highlighted, I think a lot of people are asking that question. Why, if you can't vet someone, why would any human being take an enemy and have them move into their home? You wouldn't do that, so why would the United States do it?
Because they want to be nice. They want to be nice, but at a certain point, come on. What I thought was interesting was that he had his friend buy him the gun because he thought he couldn't pass a background check. That makes me think that there should have been signals that we should have picked up on, and we really need to look at this program before we just start letting everybody and anybody in. And Obama should at least talk with more passion, seem more concerned, rather than sound like he's talking about what he ate for breakfast when he talks about terrorism. He doesn't seem to think it's a threat. And most of America, we're changing our minds.
We're way ahead of him.
Yeah.
You know, the White House is just clueless.
Julie, I got to say, it's frustrating because you look at these polls, and I'm just talking about Republicans now, so put on your Republican hat for a second.
Any day of the week. Happy to. I have Make America Great Again. Can I borrow one?
All right, so you look at the field now. You get these polls. It's frustrating to see the Republican field channel all their energy. Instead of fixing the problem, the major problem that the American people want fixed, they're focusing all their energy on Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is the one getting all the headlines because he's the only one talking about doing something to stop this.
Well, first of all, I hate to say this, but we're like Donald Trump's drug enablers because all we ever talk about is Donald Trump. So no wonder Donald Trump keeps having his numbers go up. But I will also say this. Donald Trump went a little further than saying no Syrian refugees. Donald Trump said no Muslims, period. Nobody.
For a brief period of time.
I don't care.
A pause.
Completely unconstitutional. But nevertheless, what we should be worried about is not, look, first of all, Farouk was an American-born citizen, so there's no K-1 visa that would have prevented him. Secondly, and I think notably, let's say we suspend the K-1 visa. What we don't suspend is the fact that people from France, from Britain, from Western Europe can come here in a visa waiver program. They don't need a visa. Any one of those people who is radicalized can just come over here. So the question is, do we become Fortress America? Is that something that we're prepared to become?
The question is, would this visa program stop any terrorist that was trying to come in on one of these? The questions are, are you a terrorist?
Are you a terrorist?
Yeah.
Do you plan to commit terrorism attacks when you get here?
But you guys, I'm going a step further. I'm saying to you, let's say we suspend that particular program. It's not that hard if you're one of the shooters.
Let's start somewhere.
But if you're one of the shooters in France, perfect example, who are all French citizens, guess what? Those guys can get on a plane and come here.
Okay,
and
but
there's
Julie,
no
to
visa
that
to keep them from here.
To that point, just saying, and this is what Democrats and Republicans are doing, well, we can't do this and we can't do that.
Right.
No solutions. Donald Trump's coming out at least saying, here's a solution. And by the way, the one action, and we will get to this later in the show, but the solutions that are being put forward, Chris, by the president are executive orders on guns. That wouldn't have stopped this either.
Well, and that's the pre-existing Democrat Party agenda just being rolled out once again whenever the opportunity presents itself. And it's a diversion, a distraction. It moves us to what the Democrats wanted to talk about before the attack, and it's got nothing to do with preventing terrorism. And, you know, all due respect, the Democrat argument is we can't do this, we can't do that, and they become hysterical. The sky is falling because we're bad people, and what are we going to become?
But the right has attacked Donald Trump for this as well. So let's be fair. But part of the criticism, and Carly Fiorina said this, is you're acting out of fear. Donald Trump is acting out of fear. Well, let me read you the numbers. 44% of the public says an attack is very likely on American soil in the next few months. Of course they're acting out of fear because the American public is fearful.
And 79% are very concerned that there's going to be an attack. I think that number is in your area, that 44%.
So what's the solution? Is the solution somebody like Farouk, again, an American-born citizen who happens to be Muslim, if he leaves the country, what Donald Trump proposed initially is that he wouldn't be able to come back?
He doesn't just happen to be Muslim.
Is that constitutional?
You know, I mean, again, the happen to be Muslim part needs to be dropped from the discussion.
That's not what Trump said.
It's because he's a Muslim.
That's not what Trump said.
To answer your question, what you don't want to do is exactly what this administration has done, and that has created a culture of crippling political correctness. So much that the neighbor was fearful of even saying something, and an administration that wants to keep the borders open and clearly not do anything about our immigration issues except make it worse.
If you're wondering about a bomb, I'd really like it if you said something. That's really what I...
And if you see something, say something, unless it would be politically
And then
incorrect.
everyone calls you a racist.
In which case you shouldn't, because you're a bigot and a racist and Islamophobe and probably a homophobe
Unless
too,
it's a white Christian, then you can definitely report it ASAP. But don't say anything bad about Muslims either, because the Attorney General will now prosecute you. That is what they're doing. Scary. All right, well, have you heard Donald Trump wants to ban all Muslims from coming into the U.S.? So much controversy, so much criticism, and brand new polling on that, showing the fallout or not. What voters are now saying about Teflon Don. We've got the latest polling on that proposal. And the Pentagon opening every single military combat position to women. But nearly all of our country's most elite fighters, among thousands of military men and women surveyed, say that it's a very bad idea. Are they right?
The comment heard around the world, Donald Trump's proposed complete ban on Muslims entering the United States. Check out these new numbers on it. When all likely voters are asked their opinion, a majority, 57%, oppose it, while only 25% support it. But likely Republican primary voters are evenly split on it, about 40% on each side. And after 5 days of continuous controversy and harsh criticism, look at this. His favorability among Republicans virtually unchanged since late October at 51%. The Teflon Don rides on. Catherine, can anything hurt Donald Trump?
No, because the things that normally hurt a candidate help him. I'm surprised that the numbers have not gone up, and maybe they have. I think that there are a lot of people who agree with him, but maybe don't want to say that they agree with him, particularly on this issue, because the comments were outrageous. But outrageous doesn't matter. People like outrageous, especially when nobody else has any kind of solution. Like you were saying, he's offering something, so people are like, okay.
No, and in fact, while some people said that this was his most outrageous comment yet, Julie, a poll came out earlier this week showing that it made his supporters more likely to vote for him.
I feel really bad for people who want the One Direction, whatever that band is, to regroup, because that poor little kid is Muslim. He can't come here. George Clooney, I'm sorry, your wife will never be able to come here because she's Muslim.
Temporarily.
Temporarily. It's ridiculous. You're taking over 1 billion of the world's Muslims and you're saying to them based purely on your religious affiliation.
It's ridiculous.
There's a religious test. We're now imposing a religious test.
Well,
is this what this country's about?
We've done similar things in the past, 1921, 1924.
There's no excuse for it.
The acts of 1924 went on for 40 years where we limited immigration from a number of areas.
This isn't immigration.
Including,
These are visitors.
Look, Donald Trump, we're also quoting about half or a third of what he said in postponing, delaying, pausing for a few weeks while we see if our government actually knows what they're doing. And it's pretty clear as the days go by, we don't know what we're doing when it comes to the visas. How many of these K-1 visas have we had from Pakistan? Because my understanding is about 500 a year come from Pakistan alone. So about 5,000 K-1 visas a year, about 500 from Pakistan. That's 1 out of 10. How does that make sense?
But let me say this to you. The same fear was perpetuated about Jews trying to come here in the 1930s. Because people, no. Let me say this.
When FDR turned away the St. Louis.
I'm sorry. I'll go a step further.
Julie, it's not comparable.
Of course it is.
Really weak.
It's not a weak point because people had the same. Let me finish my point, which is people. Let me finish my point. People had the same fear. These are actual Nazis who are posing as Jews, trying to come here and infiltrate our country.
Wouldn't you say
same
keeping Nazis
First
out
of all,
was a
let me
noble
jump in here.
objective?
Really?
First of all,
would I say that keeping Jews out of here because people had fears about them being Nazis?
Andrea needs a chance to respond.
Julie,
no.
It's a weak comparison.
It's not.
It's a weak comparison. Look, Sandra, I don't think Donald Trump should have made it a religious test. I think it should have been a temporary moratorium on people coming from Islamic countries. I think that would have been a little better. However, this polling is big. And Kat, you're right. People don't answer polling honestly. You call and you say, hi, is this Sandra Smith at this address or this telephone number? Hi, do you agree with Donald Trump wanting to ban Muslims? What are you going to say? Most people wouldn't say yes, especially now that the administration says that they're going to come after people for anti-Muslim rhetoric. So they're not answering that question. Honestly, I bet that number is a lot higher, and I think more people support Trump than they are willing to admit.
All right, so I'll ask you the question that people are asking themselves in restaurants and bars and coffee houses across this country right now. Will he win the primary? And if so, can he beat Hillary Clinton?
Yes, he could. It's very real. No one thought he would get this far.
Yeah.
I mean, his numbers are not moving, and no one is really able to take him on and take that #1 slot. I mean, they're coming close, but it's absolutely possible. And I also think he could beat Hillary Clinton, no question. Why? Because he can make a play, as the Wall Street Journal so astutely pointed out, for those middle-class voters and those independent voters. Hillary would be in big trouble.
And she's awful. She's just awful.
But Katherine, I want to bring Katherine in on this, because you hear from the right how crazy these things are that Donald Trump is saying, his contenders. But yet they're not championing their own message. Why aren't they winning or surging ahead based on these comments by Donald Trump that they say are so horrendous?
Well, they're not really pro anything. They're just anti-Trump. They're just saying, just so you know, this isn't us, this isn't us, this isn't us. And so how are they supposed to get their own message out there at all? What Donald Trump is saying about a religious test is ridiculous, but I think the fact that so many people are supporting it kind of shows how bad things have gotten in terms of not focusing on being safe and terrorism. And they need to make me feel like I would be safe and make people feel like I would be safe, and they have an actual plan rather than just saying Trump is an idiot.
And I think the problem is that everybody's drinking the same Kool-Aid, and nobody looks at polling that shows that any Democrat would beat Donald Trump.
Well,
because of the fact that 2/3 of the American public doesn't agree with him. He has 35% of the Republican base. That is not enough to win an election.
There's no polling out yesterday
There's
showing
not
that he
enough.
would
I'll
beat
give you
Hillary
by who? By a legitimate poll?
Well, the Roginsky Institute, I know I trust your polls that you're coming out.
You know
Julie,
what?
but they're not realistic either.
This is the same exact
Your candidate cannot get a more positive approval rating over 48%.
This is the same exact.
That is a problem, and you know it.
This is the same exact stuff that I heard.
Hillary's keywords are liar, untrustworthy, and what's
from
the third one?
But the
and boring.
From the national polls.
Here's the problem that you're facing, right? It's the same nonsense I heard. We don't believe the polls. Mitt Romney's going to win. The polls are skewed. Everybody's lying.
Now.
And
Yeah, he's no Mitt Romney.
It's different now.
Okay, it's always
different now. And if the best you got is a comparison of a leader in Germany in the 40s trying to impose some kind of political ideology instead of a religion trying to take over the world
not comparing him to
and
Hitler.
dominate. No, you just did.
No, I didn't.
It was a bad analogy.
No, I did not.
Wrong.
When did I ever compare him to Hitler?
You just did. You just compared what he was doing to the Nazis, Julie. Get your
Excuse me. I just said. Excuse me. No, it was not. All I said is that this country would not accept
Jews. You compared Islamists to the Nazis.
Excuse me. What do you go back to the record? All I said is that they would not allow Jews in because they were fearful that they were Nazis. The same way he's not allowing 1 billion-something Muslims in because all of them are terrorists.
Well,
you cannot justify
that. And Nazis are not the same.
This is the disagreement and the argument and the conversation the country is having right now. Probably just as heated.
In a time of war, you try to keep the enemy out. Okay, that is a perfectly legitimate thing to do.
Right.
And the one turning away the St. Louis every day is Barack Obama when he's denying the Christians from the Middle East safe haven here.
We got to leave it there. President Obama, speaking of which, getting ready to go at it alone on guns. His advisors finalizing a proposal that would use executive powers to expand background checks on gun sales, as Connecticut's governor announces he's also going to use an executive order to crack down on guns. How far will all of this go?
Well, it looks like the White House isn't going to let Congress get in its way on guns. President Obama's advisors are finalizing a proposal that would use executive powers to expand background checks on gun sales. One of the president's top aides saying that Mr. Obama and his team have asked to send him a final plan soon. In the meantime, Connecticut Governor Daniel Malloy is also taking action. He announced yesterday that he plans to sign an executive order that would prevent people on federal terrorism watch lists from buying guns in the state. So, what do you think about this, Chris? The president going around Congress, he's done this before, but this is big on guns.
Yeah, well, he hates these branches of government, you know. He doesn't like this whole executive power limitations thing. He doesn't like that. So he loves executive orders, which, of course, he attacked President Bush for again and again. I think he must have a lot of stock in Smith & Wesson and Browning, and because we want to be looking into whether he's becoming very, very wealthy over this. He is America's #1 gun salesman. You go into any gun shop in America, and there are pictures of President Obama saying gun salesman of the year. I think think 80 million guns have been sold since Barack Obama became president. And every time he and the Democrats do this, gun sales skyrocket across America.
True.
And it's just, there are, closets overflowing with guns because Barack Obama says this stuff. And it's just the dumbest approach to fighting terrorism that I've ever seen.
Julie, you see the chart. I'm sure you've seen it. It has skyrocketed, as Chris has said. So he is the best, I guess,
gun salesman of the year, year after year.
Not just him, though. You have Chris Christie, who did the exact same thing in 2013, banned people on the terrorist watch list from buying guns in New Jersey. So I think it's a bipartisan thing, right?
Yeah.
It's not just
on the terrorist watch list.
On the terrorist watch list, which, by the way,
you have a Christie disorder.
I'm giving Christie credit.
Christie derangement
I'm giving Christie tons of credit for doing the right liberal thing on guns.
Except, the terrorist watch list is full of, like,
I will say this. Let me say this. I actually agree with you. So I am as pro-gun control as it gets.
Yeah.
I have a really, really big problem with this because you're not convicted of any crime.
Right.
Any one of us could arbitrarily be put by some bureaucrat on the list,
right.
and you still have a right to bear arms. And so the fact that you're taking guns away from people who otherwise would have the right to bear arms without being convicted of something, that to me is a problem.
Finally, something that you're absolutely right about.
Yeah, someone who wants to commit a crime using a gun is going to get that gun, whether it's legal or
terrorist
illegal.
criminals, they don't respect the laws on the books, so why would they respect this?
Right.
Yeah, and he's acting with. He says he meets with the NRA. He meets with these people. He discusses it, and I don't know really what comes out of it because it seems like he's got a one-minded approach through this entire thing, Julie.
Well, but I will say this: you guys talk about how if somebody really wants to get a gun, they will, and that's true. If somebody really wanted to get an abortion, they could too. But you guys want to ban abortions. If somebody really wants to rob a bank, if somebody wants to rob a bank,
somebody gets killed every time there's an abortion. Somebody doesn't get killed every time.
People in San Bernardino, they also had pipe bombs. They were building bombs. I don't understand how this became a gun control issue. Clearly, they would have done something else.
If somebody wants to rob a bank, they will, but you still have laws in the books against it. So why not strengthen laws to make it harder for people to
California has checked every one of those boxes. California has every. You take Barack Obama's dream list on gun control and look at California's gun laws. Jerry Brown has added 11 gun laws
Let me
since he
get Kat in
became
here.
president.
Let me get Kat in here.
Governor.
Because Julie just literally, you just said one thing and then flip-flopped on the other thing. It was amazing to watch. Kat, what do you think about this? As Chris said, there's all these gun laws in California. It wouldn't have stopped the San Bernardino attack.
Yeah, didn't Barbara Box, or she actually said, like, we can do common sense gun control like we have here in California. Like, she doesn't know this happened in California, by the way.
Yeah.
What else do you do?
Yeah.
What else do you do beyond what you've done in California? And it wouldn't have stopped anything. I don't understand how they had a house full of pipe bombs and anybody's making this a gun control issue because clearly they would have found a way to do something anyway. They were planning on doing more.
Why not give
guns or no guns, the people that are going to do something this crazy are going to find a way.
At which point do you have limits on what kind of guns you have?
At what point do you have a reasonable discussion about it, though? And,
I'm trying to have
supporting the Second Amendment and saying I want to give people nukes.
No. You have the right to bear arms. How far do you go? But I'm sorry, but how far do you go? Do you need those kinds of guns that they had, which California has a huge loophole on, right? You're able to have to trigger it to avoid the California law. So essentially what they were able to do is legally buy a gun that under California law they could buy because of the fact that it had a little jigger on it that avoided the building bombs.
Which shows how dumb the gun laws are.
Which actually shows the fact.
I'm with Andrea. You just flip-flopped from where you started.
I thought it was hallucinating or maybe too tired, but
No. I think that particular law is stupid, but I think there are many good laws we could have in the books that because strengthen gun laws.
To answer your question, by the way, on why not give them nukes, in fact, President Obama is trying to take away the guns and give the Iranians nukes. So that's a good question for the president.
All right. Women in our military can now serve in any combat role, including elite units like the Navy SEALs. But thousands of men serving in those units say that women don't belong there. We will tell you why, and we will ask if they have a point. And is this the true meaning of Christmas? Look at this. One mom's pic of her tree and all those gifts going viral and getting slammed for it. Folks are saying that she is materialistic and she's spoiling her kids, and we are going to debate it up next.
I just want to see my baby standing right outside my door. So I just want you for my own, more than you could ever know. Make my wish come true, 'cause baby, all I want for
Last
week, Defense Secretary Ash Carter announced that for the first time in U.S. history, all combat jobs will be open to women. That includes elite military units like the Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, and Delta Force, which arguably have the most dangerous assignments in the world. But current members of those units say overwhelmingly that when they're risking their lives on the battlefield, women have no place on their teams. The Rand Corporation conducting a survey of 7,600 personnel serving in the specialized units and found that 85% of them say they oppose having women in elite combat roles. Roughly 70% oppose having women in their individual units. And the main reason for their opposition? Listen to this. More than 80% say women aren't strong enough and can't handle the demands of the job, while 64% say they aren't mentally tough enough. All right, so Chris, I'll start with the man on the couch first. Where do you fall on this? Should women be in combat roles?
My office was in the Pentagon for 10 years. I covered the military for a decade. Women are essential to the proper operation of our military in all kinds of roles. But if women don't weaken the strength of frontline combat units, then theoretically all female frontline combat units would be equal, and they're not. The Marine
so your
Corps,
answer is no.
The Marine Corps has, not to all roles, not to every single role, just because we're feminists, you know. I mean, it's important to have women. We've got women who are fighter pilots. We've got women on submarines now. We've got women all over the place. There are very real life and death issues related to this. The Marine Corps conducted studies finding that gender-integrated units suffered casualties about 40% higher than all male units.
Okay, so you're referencing the physical aspect. To me, what was the biggest surprise in this survey was that women aren't mentally tough enough. Many of them believe, a majority of them believe.
I don't know if that's true or not. I would say if you are able to compete with men physically, and I think that's a tall order. I mean, biologically, I would think a male Navy SEAL is going to be stronger than any woman who could pass the Navy SEAL test. But if biologically, by some freak of nature, a woman can compete with a man physically, then yeah, she should.
Only freak of nature women.
But legitimately, I mean, look, we just, most of us don't have the physical strength that men do.
Bring in 20 guys from SEAL Team 6 and stand them up here and find me a woman that can.
I'm all for that idea.
All right. Well, all right, go ahead.
All right, Katherine, I've got to get your take on this. Where do you fall?
I think that, yeah, if they can pass the same physical tests, then fine. I think very few could. And the mental, what does that even mean, not mentally strong enough? Just because I cry more? Crying releases endorphins.
There's no crying in combat.
I don't know.
All right, so to Catherine's point, Andrea, she's saying as long as there is a physical endurance test and that woman passes it, she should be fair game for a combat unit.
No, I don't think so. And I don't know, never been a Navy SEAL, but I'm going to trust the Navy SEALs on this one. It's not just physical combat and it's not just mental. It's what these men have to go through and what they think about when they're serving with women. Their mind needs to be on killing the enemy alone. And from the SEALs that I have talked to, when there's a woman in the unit, it is not. And so I'm going to take their word for it and trust them. But you know what really ticked me off is the day after 14 Americans were gunned down, Ash Carter was trotted out to make some announcement about women in combat.
A PC.
Why? I thought that was so ridiculous. 14 Americans are gunned down, and they roll him out to make some very PC announcement about women. I'm all for equality, but that to me was just bizarre.
The Israelis also discovered in combat, if an integrated unit, if a woman is hit, men tend to drop their rifles and run to the aid of the woman because it's the way they were raised. There are cultural differences. If a man is shot off in your periphery and he's part of your team, you keep going. If it's a woman, you think of your mother and your sister, God, country, and apple pie, and you run to the aid of the woman. I don't think we want to discourage that, do we?
All right, well, good discussion, and change is happening in the military. Well, who hasn't heard someone say that their partner is their best friend? We'll tell you why one writer says your honey can't and shouldn't be your best friend. Kat agrees, by the way. Well, are they all right about this? This is going to be a good one.
Well, you've heard it before. I'm marrying my best friend. Well, one blogger argues that your significant other cannot and should not be your best friend, too. She says that their roles are very, very different. For example, you complain about your partner to your best friend, and you get your partner to help around the house, not your best friend. She also says that just like men need their guy time to talk about guy issues, it's the same with the ladies. Important to note that the blogger is not married. So even though she's not married, Kat Timpf, does she have a good point?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, if you're posting on the internet, I'm marrying my best friend, or I'm married to my best friend, you're very annoying and everyone's making fun of you behind your back. Second of all, this assumes that you need to tell your partner everything from before you were dating. No, look, there are some things that my best friend knows that anyone I'm dating can never, ever know, ever. Like, and I'm assuming anyone I'm dating has those same kinds of stories, so I'm not going to ask. Why gross each other out? There's certain things that they don't need to know. That's what best friends are for, and I hate this expectation.
Your best friend probably doesn't want to know that stuff either.
But that's what they're there for.
Blogger, unmarried, when she is married, she's going to be the first person to complain that her husband is out with his best friend. I think it's very important that you're best friends with your lover.
Yeah, but I don't know. There's some stuff that for the best friend, not the boyfriend.
Sandra, you say share everything.
I think it's very important that you're friends with the guy or gal that you're going to spend the rest of your life with.
Friends is one thing, but best friends, Julie, like you're telling him every thought that's going through your mind, which is a scary.
Look at Andrea staying out of this.
Can I have two best friends? Because I don't want to give up my current best friend because I love her and she's the bomb. We've been best friends since we were 13. But I kind of agree with you. You want to. Yeah. Hypothetically, when you get married, you kind of want your best friend. And, you know, Jay, our producer, just told me that he's been married for 20 years and his wife is his best friend.
Okay, but do you tell them everything?
But do you tell your best friend everything?
I don't tell my best friend.
Well, I don't tell anybody everything, but there's some stories that are for the best friend that are not for
There's some stories I'm going to probably tell the guy on the street before I tell anybody else because I don't even know that guy on the street.
So, yeah, that's very great.
What about tell us the guy's perspective here. Do the men don't overshare? Are they getting into every bleeding detail of their life with their significant others?
Well, nothing embarrassing, of course.
Oh,
you know, so
why not?
That's not really true. I think this might be, to some degree or another, a matter of terminological inexactitude. You know, your best friend. How do you define best friend? You know, I mean, I've been shacked up, living in sin for more than 20 years now with the person with whom I'm probably closer than anyone else in the world, and probably that I've probably never been as close to anybody as I am to this woman. All right. Mm-hmm. And I have best friends that I tell things to, but, you know, we don't sleep together. We don't, I mean, you know, on a pillow.
Hey, Chris, I'm not your best friend.
No, but I think that, you know, your best friend with whom you are not cohabitating and all that goes along with that plays a different role in your life than the person with whom you live, whether you're married or not.
Wait, hold on. Andrea hasn't responded.
I knew you were going to put the spotlight on me. Look, I think there are things that you tell your best female friend. And I have been in relationships where the guy is like a best friend, but I don't tell him everything.
Yep.
There are lots of things that I do not tell him because I don't think he needs to know. I think it would be a disaster if he knew.
Exactly.
And then my best friend, I tell her a ton of things, but I don't tell her everything either.
Right.
Some things you got to save for your therapist, ladies.
Mm-hmm. I think it's good.
Totally agree with all of that.
That one night in college.
Why wouldn't you, you know, why wouldn't you tell, if you're married to somebody and this is the person you want to spend the rest of your life with, why wouldn't you tell them even the embarrassing stuff?
Because you want to spend the rest of your life with them.
What, did you kill?
Because you have to see them every day. No, did I kill somebody? No, I did not. But there's things that you just don't want that person to know.
I don't tell my guy everything. I feel like that would be a huge mistake.
It would be a huge mistake. I don't want him to like me less just for the sake of being able to say, oh, he's my best friend.
Well, I think honesty is the best policy, but what do I know?
Yeah, honesty and oversharing are different.
Or what?
Let me just say this.
It's possible to overshare.
Are mysterious.
And I love mystery. She wanted to show her Christmas spirit. Sandra's giving me a face. Now this mother of three is defending herself after a photo of her tree piled high with gifts went viral. We'll talk about it next.
The Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop. Mistletoe hung where you can see every couple tries to stop. Rocking around the Christmas tree, let the Christmas spirit ring. Later we'll...
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. You really are a heel. You're as cuddly as a cactus.
All right, well, one mom hitting back at haters who accuse her of
spoiling her children after a picture of her Christmas tree buried under hundreds of presents goes viral. One person saying, "This is ridiculous. There's no way these kids could appreciate all these presents." And another saying, "That's disgusting. Just think of the conversation the kids will have with other kids telling them what they got." But others took the mom's side, writing, "Who cares? If I could afford it, I'd do the same." And why is it anyone else's business how you choose to spend the money you worked for? Well, because she made it everybody's business by posting the picture on Facebook, right? Okay, Andrea, I heard you say earlier, good for her if she can do this for her kids.
I think so too. It's her house. She wants to buy them a lot of gifts. Let her. Who am I to criticize?
Okay, but to me, I agree with you, but that looks, Katherine, like a lot of presents.
It's a lot of stuff. I imagine building a fort in it is what I kind of imagine. I love that she said she only spoils them at Christmas, though, and the way that she explained that was saying if they break their phones, they have to save their money. She has two 13-year-olds and a 19-month-old. Like, does he have a phone? Because I feel like he doesn't need a phone.
Probably.
But yeah, she can do what she wants. The kids are probably nightmares. They'll probably be sufficiently made fun of after this is all going viral, and maybe that'll help.
All right. I was going to say, no one's going to want to date these kids when they get older. Talk about high maintenance.
No, you're kidding. Look at the swag they have. Everybody's going to want to date them.
Julia, she's trying to make a point here. I mean, after all, she posted it on Twitter. She has to know that looks like an obscene amount of presents. Yeah. Should she really be surprised by this backlash?
She shouldn't. But I mean, look, I agree that she should be able to do what she wants to do. It's her money. Right. It's her Christmas tree. I'm struggling with this because my son is 3 and we're celebrating Hanukkah, which is 8 days of presents. And this kid is like going crazy because one day he gets something, he's like, ah, and then the next day he forgets about it because there's a new one, ah. Right. So I don't know at which point you start spoiling your kids. I'm really struggling with it this year.
Does he have a phone?
He does not yet. He has a lightsaber, though. Oh. He got a lightsaber.
So the other point, though, is that it isn't just about, is it too many presents or, you know, I mean, because we actually don't know what's in those boxes. It could be, you know, a $5 ornament here and there.
What are you doing this Christmas for your 2 little ones?
Honestly, I can still put a cardboard box in front of my 2-year-old, and my other guy's 10 months old, so it's, you know, I'm going to get away with it pretty easily this Christmas. But doesn't this get away, Katherine, from the idea of giving at Christmas time?
Well, look, there's giving and then there's turning your kid into a monster, and I don't know exactly where this falls along that. I think that, you know, you shouldn't demonize her for having money and doing what she wants, but you also can't deny that a lot of the spoiled kids, they're brats. But again, we don't even know what's in them. There could be socks. Well, there could be books about being It could be boxes full of books about being a good person. I don't know. Who knows?
Maybe it's Mommy Dearest. Remember when she made them send all the Christmas presents back to the charity and she only kept one?
Could be cruel. Could be an act of cruelty. I'm surprised in Obama's economy that anybody can afford to buy that many gifts.
Well, she emphasized in her posting, by the way, that she's not wealthy. And we do know it goes crazy for Christmas.
Look, maybe she went to the dollar store. I mean, we don't know. Maybe she likes see the kids open the presents, and they're all little. Well, there's a mitten in one and another mitten in the other.
the wrapping and the Scotch tape alone to wrap that gift. Pretty pricey. So, all right. Well, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Worse things could happen. There's a big pile of gifts covering the tree.
That kind of sounds like the Grinch and out, though. Why wouldn't you give one day and one the next? That's kind of fun.
Their kids must go nuts.
25 days diving headfirst into the tree.
That's what I imagine. And by the way, I guess they don't believe in Santa Claus because doesn't Santa bring those presents?
I'll never tell.
All right. Well, have a great weekend, everybody. We are back here on Monday at noon Eastern Time. The Happening Now starts right now.